فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله والكتاب الذي نزل على رسوله والكتاب الذي أنزل من قبل ومن يكفر بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر فقد ضل ضلالا بعيدا. ऐ लोगो जो ईमान लाए हो, इंसाफ के अलमबरदार और खुदा वास्ते के गवाह बनो, अगरचे तुम्हारे इंसाफ और तुम्हारी गवाही की इज्जत खुद तुम्हारी अपनी जात पर या तुम्हारे वालिदैन या रिश्तेदारों पर ही क्यों न पड़ती हो। फर्क मामला खाह मालदार हो या गरीब, अल्लाह तुमसे ज्यादा उनका खैर खाह है। लिहाजा अपनी ख्वाहिश नफ्स की पैरवी में अदल से बाज न रहो, और अगर तुमने लगी लिपटी बात कही या सच्चाई से पहलू बचाया तो जान रखो कि जो कुछ तुम करते हो अल्लाह को उसकी खबर है। ऐ लोगो जो ईमान लाए हो, ईमान लाओ अल्लाह पर और उसके रसूल पर और उसकी किताब पर जो अल्लाह ने अपने रसूल पर नाजिल की है, और हर उस किताब पर जो इससे पहले वो नाजिल कर चुका है। जिसने अल्लाह और उसके मलाइका और उसकी किताबों और उसके रसूलों और रोज़ आखिरत से कुफ्र किया, वो गुमराही में भटक कर बहुत दूर निकल गया। सदक़ल्लाहुल अज़ीम।
Jazakallahu khairan, Mr. Athar Hussain. With pleasure and pride, I announce that Institute of Objective Studies, New Delhi, is organizing a book release ceremony today on 12th of November 2022 in this afternoon. The book is edited by Professor Zafar Mahfuz Nomani Saab, who is the Professor of Law in the Department of Law, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. The book will be released by a professor of law and who is currently Dean of Faculty of Law, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Today's function is presided over by Professor Zadem Khan Saab, who is Secretary General of Institute of Objective Studies, New Delhi. I first of all welcome you all the participants who have joined us physically or through the online mode. I present my heartiest welcome to the great personalities sitting on the dais and the author or the editor who has joined us online. First of all, I want to welcome Professor Muhammad Zafar Mahfuz Nomani to this function. He is a professor of law in Aligarh Muslim University. He is a promising teacher and researcher and is working for last 20 years in this field. His field of specialization is ecology law and international property rights. Apart from teaching, he has taken up several projects from various funding agencies and has completed those successfully. For example, he has successfully collaborated with World Bank and Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Government of India, and has completed capacity building project on environmental law in India. He has taken up UGC's major research project on the review of legal and institutional mechanism for the protection of wetlands in India. He has also completed a major project of ICSSR, Indian Council of Social Science Research, on socio-economic impact of special economic zones on landowners and local inhabitants of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, states of India. His recommendations were greatly taken care of by the government. Professor Nomani is presently working on the project Role of International Biodiversity Law in Developing Access and Benefit Sharing Regime in India. He has authored more than 12 books and more than 198 research papers covering diverse areas of environmental law, intellectual property rights, and corporate law. I personally welcome, and on behalf of Institute of Objective Studies, welcome Professor Nomani to this function. Then I welcome Professor Iqbal Hussain Saab. Professor Iqbal Hussain Saab is a professor of law in the Department of Law, Jamia Millia Islamia. He is presently Dean Faculty of Law. His almost whole education is from Aligarh Muslim University, except PhD, which he has completed from Jamia Millia Islamia. Professor Iqbal Hussain is a very hardworking teacher and very dedicated teacher. Professor Hussain is associated with various research institutes and innovative organizations like Indian Law Institute, New Delhi, Consumer Association, New Delhi, etc. He has published several books and a number of research papers in very reputed national and international journals. He has also taught in the University of Zanzibar, Tanzania. I welcome you, sir, to the Institute of Objective Studies for this book release function, because you are our chief guest. You are going to release the book. The title of the book is Equality, Justice and Fraternity in Contemporary India. I welcome Professor Zadem Khan Saab, who is the Secretary General of Institute of Objective Studies. Professor Zadem Khan Saab is a very senior professor of the country. He is a well-known and renowned political scientist of the country. He has occupied various positions, administrative positions in Jamia Millia Islamia, and has occupied the position of head and dean, faculty of social sciences, Jamia Millia Islamia. I welcome you, sir, to this function. I welcome you all who have come here, who have with us physically, in the physical mode, and I welcome those who have joined us in the online mode. Thank you very much. Now, before proceeding, I invite Professor Muhammad Zafar Mahfuz Nomani, who is the editor of the book, to introduce the book and give the main points why you have selected this topic for this publication. Thank you very much, Professor Zafar Muhammad Mahfuz Nomani Saab from the Department of Law, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Hasina Ashia, Professor Zadem Khan, my revered teacher, Professor Iqbal Hussain, and Dr. Manzoor Alam Sahib, or Dr. Muhammad Alam Sahib, and all the office bearers and functionaries of Institute of Objective Studies, New Delhi. I feel it a proud privilege to be associated with the Institute of Objective Studies right from the days of my studentship. And I have been groomed by the profounding thoughts of this institute, and that I feel my bounden duty to disclose in public. And I always feel very privileged to be associated in any capacity with the institute's functions and its research programs. Today is a book release function of the book. The title is Equality, Justice, Fraternity in Contemporary India. In fact, the genesis of this book is primarily the Institute's deep commitment to the constitutional values, the constitutional morality, the transformative constitution, which we talk of. We generally say that it's not enough that we should have the government, but we should have a good governance also. So similarly, we also talk of that we should have a constitution, but having a constitution will not be enough unless we have constitutionalism, unless we have the constitutional morality. If you look at the constitutional development in contemporary India, there are certain spectacular changes which are discernible, and that pricks every reader or every student of the constitutional law and law per se, and even the general public to ponder upon. The first thing is that in 1973, the judiciary, with its highest bench, constitutional bench, has come out with a judgment known as Keshwananda Bharati versus State of Kerala in 1973. So that was the phase with the enactment of the Constitution, 1950 to 1973, a 23 years period, or we can say roughly a kind of a period of a quarter century. The judicial experiences of the justice dispensation in this country led the Supreme Court to believe that there is a basic structure. And the doctrine of basic structure, which has been propounded in Keshwananda Bharati's case, has been one of the celebrated and one of the cardinal principles of constitutional law in this country. The background happens to be very simple. The background is that the founding father of our constitution and large number of people and our leaders who have envisioned India into a secular, democratic republic, socialist, secular and democratic republic, then judiciary at least had a pause and thought that there will be a generations of legislatures who in their pursuit of power may try to amend the constitution in such a way, though it will be called an amendment, but it will be going to change drastically the very face of the constitution. Therefore, as a student of law, when we peruse Keshwananda Bharati and its aftermath, then it is said that the power of amendment of the constitution which has been laid in the Golaknath's case is not to liquidate the identity of the constitution. And the parliament and the legislature is not supposed to act as the liquidator of the constitution, and they have a solemn constitutional duty under the oath of the constitution to protect and defend the constitution. Thereby, the basic structure of the constitutions cannot be amended. This was a kind of a catharsis. This was a kind of introspection. This was a kind of a feeling of the Indian judiciary, of its experiences of working of the constitution in a quarter of century. Then we have from 73 to 90s, a kind of a phase where the public interest litigation acted as a gravitational pull to confer those rights on the people which were hitherto not defined within the precincts and the boundaries of the Constitution of India, meaning thereby that no person shall be deprived of life and personal liberty except the procedure established by the law when it was called upon to be interpreted by the Supreme Court in Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India. Justice P. N. Bhagwati, Chief Justice, as then he was, was of the view that the life means that all goes along with and a dignified life, and then that interpretation of the Constitution, which has given a widest possible amplitude to the metaphor and the vocabulary of the right, and thereafter the judiciary have taken it as a fundamental parchment and the document, and then started reading all the rights which have been conferred under the directive principles of a state policy. For example, the right to education, right to work, right to livelihood, right to environment, right to Panchayati Raj, right to health. And then they tried to read these rights as a concomitant and a part and parcel of the Article 21. And then a time came that through the liberal approach of the Supreme Court, be that the judicial activism, be that the judiciary was called upon to act as a bulwark of the democracy, has interpreted these rights within the meaning and interpretation of Article 21. And a classical example of this fact is Article 45 of the Indian Constitution, which erstwhile was uh, envisaged that a state shall endeavor, a state shall impart free and compulsory education to all children below the age of 14 years. And then that right was made fundamental right, and Article 21A has been added by the way of constitutional amendment, and it has made a fundamental right. So right to education, which were the part of the directive principles of the state policy, has been made a fundamental right, and as well as it has been made a fundamental duty. And though the language of the Article 45 stands corrected and changed now, and wherein it has been a duty of the parents to foster and provide adequate opportunities of their children to grow educationally. So the upshot of the argument is the judicial vicissitude of the interpretation of the Constitution has been to accommodate more and more fundamental rights within the chapters of the fundamental rights, or especially Article 21, Article 14, and Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. The present volume, which is reflective of the fact that the journey of 1973 post Keshwananda Bharati's case, the journey of post Maneka case, and the journey of the judicial activism of the Supreme Court, which has emerged as a new avatar in this democratic country to save the rights, to confer more and more rights, which were quite unarticulated, and has read the nature and content. It refurbished the entire nature and content of the right. Now, the Supreme Court is reeling under a kind of a feeling that the basic structure which has been laid as a part of the German Constitution is not visible in India. And therefore, the Supreme Court has found an equivalent metaphor to protect the rights of the people, and that equivalent metaphor is constitutional morality. So we must have a constitution, we must have constitutionalism, and we must have the innate sense of the constitutional morality. And then that constitutional morality demands what the title of the book is: Equality, Justice, Fraternity in Contemporary India. Because Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the founding father of the Indian Constitution, have envisioned a society in India which can be called in one word, and that word is egalitarian society. If we can understand the etymological senses, if we understand the import of the words of egalitarian society and the classless society, I think that I shall bring home the conclusion to the audience and the panelists simply because of the fact that the Supreme Court have recently come out with a judgment wherein it has upheld the 10% reservation to economically weaker section belonging to the upper caste of this country. And that judgment have triggered a new debate about that reservation is for equality or reservation is to sustain the interest of a particular minority or minority in power or minority who has been subjugated, be that scheduled caste, be that scheduled tribe, be that backward classes, be that other backward classes, be that the class of people who have a lower income, but the people who belong to the upper strata, upper caste of the society, because the Constitution of India, like the Indian Penal Code, does not have a chapter of general explanation where it has, in a succinct manner or in an unmistakable term, has defined who is backward, who is minority, who is scheduled caste, who is scheduled tribe, who is marginalized people. Therefore, everything is left open and wide open to the interpretation of the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court through its edifice and the rampart time to time try to find new ways and meaning. The concern of the book is simply that over the period of the time, the feeling of otherness and the feeling that some of the citizen, which has been the kind of the feeling which this book subsumes, is a kind of a feeling which has been very popular, and that feeling is nothing short of the entire voluminous report of the Sachar Committee in 2 volumes. And then when Sachar Committee report was allowed to be executed, then there was certain problems, and that problems has given rise to 2 more committees. And one was the Diversity Commission report, another was the Equal Opportunity Commission report. So taking the cause of the backward classes, the marginalized people and the minorities, we should take a very holistic perspective of the Sachar Committee report and Diversity Commission report, Amitabh Kundu report, popularly known as, and the Equal Opportunity Commission report of N.R. Madhava Menon Committee report, popularly known as. If we take these 3 reports and we try to get the gist out of it, then the idea is that why is it so that in the process of development, some of the section of the people are lagging behind, and the section of the people who are lagging behind is not the onus of their backwardness, that whether they are backward, the onus of their backwardness lies on the state. That is the Equal Opportunity Commission report and the Diversity Committee report unequivocally spell out that the onus of the backwardness lies on the state, and a state should act as a balancer and equalizer to the fact that why the cake of development have not reached to these section of people, and then the evidence-based advocacy that why a particular section of the population is reeling under some kind of a deprivation is a subject not by the community, is a subject not by any organizations, articulations or advocacy, but it is subject that the state should meaningfully engage into it. And one of that aspect always happens to be that when we talk of justice, social, economic, and political, and then if you read the preamble of the Constitution, then ultimately says that the fraternity, because the fraternity is a kind of a question which may not be a legal question, but the question of the fraternity is ethical. The question of fraternity is always a very fundamental question right from the civilization, because unless we have to inculcate the feeling of the brotherhood, unless we try to imbibe the human values, unless we respect, foster for the others, unless we cherish the diversity of this country, unless we try to keep the person who are in the margins to the mainstream, then the Constitution will not work. And that's why the Ambedkar in his book have rightly pointed out that the fraternity is something very important, is a kind of a means and a sense of common brotherhood of all Indians. And let there be a kind of a feeling, and because of some of the development which happens to be here and there, and happens to be very disturbing, that raises the question that whether we can address squarely the question of fraternity. The question without fraternity, equality, and liberty will be no deeper than a coat of a paint. So this is the word which is very impregnant. And what Ambedkar says, that without fraternity, equality and liberty will be no deeper than a coat of paint. And this speaks volume of the things that why the question of fraternity has acquired a center stage, and that transcends all kind of the mundane barriers of the religious and the casteist and the regional kind of a feeling, and all kind of the obscurantism, to lead some kind of a liberational values to allow this constitution to work. The other thing which I will just conclude about the volume, that the volume per se tries to have some kind of a feeling that the Constitution of India is not, even if it has been to be very lengthiest, even if it has been very comprehensive. If you say that Article 14 is there, if you say Article 21 is there, if you say you have a fundamental freedom under Article 19, if you say that you have religious freedom under Article 25 or 26 of the Constitution, if you say that you have Article 29 and 30 which protects the minority, the Constitution of India, despite its solemn affirmations and conferring the rights of the people, is not a self-executing document. And therefore, it requires an executive machinery to read the Constitution and to implement the Constitution and translate the ideals of the constitutions. And that's why the working of the India's Constitution since last 72 or 73 years clearly demarcate that we require a strong enforcement of the Constitution and the constitutional values. This volume, which consists of the 15 papers and which is primarily a kind of international seminar which is being scheduled by the Institute of Objective Studies, and some of the papers of that seminar and some other papers are also taken into that volume. I think that volume is not something like very sacrosanct and is not going to be a magnum opus, but certainly will try to buttress the debate that over the period of time, the question of equality, justice, and fraternity in contemporary India have assumed additional significance. And this book tried to give this message. And I am thankful to Dr. Manzoor Alam Sahab and Dr. Muhammad Alam and the office bearer of the Institute of Objective Studies to have thought of. And there's another book which is on the annual that talks about the judicial accountability. I hope to complete it very soon as the papers are completed. And I wish all the best to the Institute. And I do look forward for further debate on those issues and look forward to profounding thoughts of the panelists, of especially the Professor Iqbal Hussain and Professor Zaidam Khan and Professor Hasina Ashia about the volume and the audience. Thank you very much, one and all. Thank you for patient hearing. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much, sir, for this elaboration and discussing the contents of the book. Now it is the time to release the book. I request Professor Iqbal Hussain Saab, Dean Faculty of Law, Jamia Millia Islamia, to release the book. And also I request Professor Zaidam Khan Saab. Thank you very much. Now I request Professor Iqbal Hussain Saab, who is the chief guest of this function, book release function, to please present your remarks. Thank you very much. Over to you, Professor Iqbal Hussain Saab.
Honorable Dr. Muhammad Manzoor Alam Sahab, Chairman IUS. I am told that he is online watching the program. Honorable Professor Zadem Khan Sahab, Secretary General, Institute of Objective Studies. Professor Muhammad Zafar Mahfouz Nomani, who is the editor of this book. Professor Hasina Hashia, Assistant Secretary General, Institute of Objective Studies. Professor Salina K. Bashir, the Dean, Institute of Law and Research, Jamia Hamdard. It is indeed, I am incredibly privileged to be in your midst this evening and highly honored for having been assigned the responsibility of releasing the book containing the articles on highly contemporary topics, which has been edited by a very learned and a brilliant professor, Professor Muhammad Zafar Mahfouz Nomani, the Faculty of Law, Aligarh Muslim University. Indeed, the topic of the book, which is the compilation of the articles, is the equality, justice, and fraternity in the contemporary India. This article, this book is the outcome of two-day national seminar on the topic towards equality, justice, and fraternity in contemporary India, creating better tomorrow through law, which was organized by Institute of Objective Studies in association with the Department of English, Alia University, Kolkata, which was concluded on April 23, 2017. The topic on which the seminar was conducted is very relevant from being a citizen of India. That's why, not in a very scholarly manner, but as a layman manner, having the touching the objective of the topic, let me explain about the horizon of the concept of these three words, that is equality, justice, and fraternity. Ladies and gentlemen, these words have been derived or taken from the preamble of the Indian Constitution particularly, and that is what we mean. Let me explain about few things about the Constitution and the preamble in a very simple language. Indeed, every constitution has a philosophy of its own. For the philosophy underlying our constitution, we must look back into the historic objective resolution of Pandit Nehru, which was adopted by the Constituent Assembly in January 22nd, 1947. There was 8 resolution which was mentioned by Jawaharlal Nehru. The 5th one I am mentioning, wherein shall be guaranteed and secured to all people of India justice, social, economic, and political equality of a status, of opportunity, and before the law, action, subject to the law and public morality. This is the one of the resolution that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru submitted to the Constituent Assembly on that day in the year 1947. And later on, it occupied the same context, a place in the preamble of Indian Constitution. It will be seen that the ideal embodied in the above resolution, faithfully reflected in the preamble to the Constitution, which was amended in the year 1976, which the editor, just talking about the Keshwanandan Bharti case, summarize the aims and objectives of the Constitution. Now, a brief introduction, definition of the preamble. The beginning of the statute is called a preamble. Any statute, any law which is enacted, if you see any law enacted by, this is the protocol of the enactment, that it starts with the preamble, which is a key to intent of the makers of the act and the mischief which they would remedy by the same. In fact, the proper function of the preamble is to explain certain facts which are necessary to be explained before the enactments contained in an act of the parliament can be understood. A preamble may also be used for other reasons, to limit the scope of the certain expression, or to explain the facts, or to introduce the definitions. Now I read the preamble itself, which I, as a citizen of India, everybody must be knowing. It reads as follows: we, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into sovereign, socialist, secular, and democratic republic. This is very important, democratic republic, and to secure justice, that is social, economic, and political, liberty, that is of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality, that is of a status, of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, that is assuming the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves the Constitution. This was a pious agreement and undertaking that we, the people of India, took, and from here the mode of governance is started. The importance and utility of the preamble has been pointed out in several decisions, in our Supreme Court decisions, though by itself it is not enforceable in the court of law. The preamble to a written constitution states the objects, and the constitution seeks to establish and promote also aids the legal interpretation of the Constitution. Therefore, the preamble speaks two things. First, it indicates the source from which the Constitution derives its authority. That is, we the people of India. Number two, it also states the objects which the Constitution also establishes to promote. Here there are 5 things. 3 is the mode of governance and 4 is the objectives. What are the 3? 3 is, that is, the nature of our constitution governance will be sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and the objective will be justice, equality, liberty, and fraternity. Friends, the word democracy, which has been incorporated in the preamble, the picture of the democratic republic which the preamble envisages is democratic not only from the political but also from social standpoint. In other words, it envisages not only the democratic form of government but also democratic society infused with the spirit of justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Coming to the democratic society, that the democratic republic stands for the good of all. The people is embodied in the concept of welfare state, which inspired the directive principles of the state policy. The economic justice assured by the preamble can hardly be achieved if democracy envisaged by the Constitution were confined to the political democracy only. Therefore, the most important aspect which I want to enumerate before you, that in short, the Indian Constitution promises not only the political but also the social democracy, as explained by Dr. Ambedkar in his concluded speech in the Constituent Assembly. That is very, very important, that political democracy cannot last unless there lies as the base of it social democracy. What does social democracy mean? It means a way of life which recognizes liberty, equality, and fraternity, which are not to be treated as a separate items in the Trinity. They form the union of Trinity in the sense that to divorce one from the other is to defeat the very purpose of the democracy. Liberty cannot be divorced from the equality. Equality cannot be divorced from the liberty, nor can liberty and equality be divorced from each other. The banishment of the poverty, not by expropriation of those who have, but the multiplication of the national wealth and the resource of an equitable distribution thereof among all whose contribution towards the production is the aim of the state envisaged in the directive principle. This is the meaning of economic justice. Will be the installed in our subcontinent to the extent that this goal is reached. In short, economic justice aims as establishing economic democracy and the welfare state. Coming to the social justice, what is social justice? Social justice is a fundamental right. Social justice is the comprehensive form to remove social imbalance by the law, harmonizing the rival claims or the interest of the different groups and of the sections in the social structure or the individual by means of which alone it would be possible to build up a welfare state. Last a week, you have seen a very celebrated judgment of the Supreme Court of India regarding the reservation to the economically backward classes, that is the part of the social justice. The promise for the social, economic, and political justice to the citizens, maybe Constitution of India cannot condone policies that turns a blind eye to celebrate infliction of misery on the large segment of our population. What is liberty? Democracy in any sense cannot be established unless certain minimal rights which are essential for the free and civilized existence are assured to every member of the community. The preamble mentions these essential individual rights as freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. And these are the guarantees against all authorities of the state by Part 3 of the Constitution. Liberty, that is another concept of the equality. The liberty should be coupled with social restraint and subordinated to the liberty of the greatest number for the common happiness. Coming to equality, the guaranteeing of the certain rights to each individual would be meaningless unless all inequality is banished from the social structure and each individual is assured of equality of a status, opportunity for the development of the best in him, and the means for the enforcement of the rights guaranteed to him. The objective secure in the body of the Constitution by making illegal all discriminations by the state between citizens and citizens simply on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. That is the meaning of equality. Friends, the last one is the fraternity, which is the topic of the book. Democracy, again, would indeed be hollow if it fails to generate this spirit of brotherhood amongst all sections of the people, a feeling that they are all children of the same soil, the same motherland. It becomes all the more essential in the country like India, composed of so many race, religion, language, and the culture. Article 1 of the Declaration of the Human Rights, 1948, adopted by the United Nations, says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reasons and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. It is this spirit of brotherhood that the preamble of our Constitution reflects. The unity and fraternity of the people of India, professing numerous faiths, has been sought to be achieved by enshrining the idea of the secular state, which means that the state protects all religious equality and does not itself uphold any religion as a state religion. At the last, a fraternity cannot, however, be installed unless the dignity of each of its member is maintained. The preamble, therefore, the preamble says that the state in India will assure the dignity of the individual. The Constitution seeks to achieve this object by guaranteeing equal fundamental rights to each individual so that he can enforce his minimal rights if embedded by anybody in a court of law. Seeing that these justiciable rights may not be enough to maintain the dignity of an individual if he is not free from wants and misery, a number of directives have been included in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution. With this, I have explained in a very ordinary manner what the Constitution envisage about the gift at the time of framing this Constitution, and in the preamble, and how it has been percolated in the rest of the part of the Constitution. Now coming to the book itself. As I told you that this book is the outcome, and at the very outset, I must congratulate the Institute of Objective Studies in general and the chairperson, Dr. Manzoor Alam Sahab in particular, that his personality, keeping in view the need of the hour, has conceived this topic to be debated in a countrywide manner. And this paper, this conference seminar was enacted in Kolkata. And I was the witness of that seminar for 2 days, and a large number of the people contributed a brilliant and extraordinary paper on this topic. And these papers has been collected together, and a very learned professor has been asked to compile and preserve it into the book. This is not to keep in the library, but it is our duty to read each article, because writing each article, each of the author has taken large pain, a huge pain to collect the material, to spread the news and the idea, what is our freedom means and what are the freedom guaranteed to us as the citizens of India, who are the sovereign as per the preamble and the Constitution. So it is the duty not only these few hands which are sitting over here to read it, but you spread the news about this book, this article, and let the people understand. And not only that, before I come to the a critical analysis of the book, I'll request through this dais that each article which I have gone through that needs empirical study, because the guarantee which has been enshrined in our Constitution, that is not in total, not even 40 to 50% of its guarantee is being implemented. Last day, I was listening on the YouTube a speech delivered by Harsh Mandar, an IAS officer. He was delivering this speech in Patna, and he was given an example that when he went to one of the village in Jharkhand, they were saying that, look, sir, there are many, we have learned and we are teaching our children how to sleep in the night hunger. That is the thing that is still percolating in our society. And one of the things really you will wonder that some of the example he gave, that the people of that village said that we have chosen the grains of the food from the dung of the cows, the undigested food which the cows and the animals they deliver. These people, they just go through and pick up this, and there are many people who are sitting in his meeting. He said, I have eaten the bread of that dung cow, the grains. Now you see the equality. You see the fraternity. We see the guarantee. So still we need an empirical study, the guarantee and the articles which has been written. Now the editor himself has given this example of Dr. Ambedkar, who says that fraternity means and sense of common brotherhood of all India, all of Indians. It is the principle which gives unity and solidarity to the social life. It is the principle. He was convinced that without fraternity, equality, and liberty will be no deeper than a coat of paint. He explained, without fraternity, liberty, and equality could not become a nature course of thing. It would require a constable to enforce them. Dr. Ambedkar used the language of the brotherhood in explaining his understanding of fraternity, that is bandhutva. Is beautiful iridescent word derived from the Sanskrit, reflecting the idea that we are all bound to and with each other. The objective of the seminar and this topic that has nicely been concluded by the article written by the chairperson himself, that is Dr. Manzoor Alam, and I quote, "The legal structure of India is credited with the containing greater ideals and the laws for the protection of marginalized sections. Through its preamble, fundamental right, and the directive principles, the Constitution ensures fair play. This sector calls for the immediate attention. As this country is big and diversified, the judicial system is an urgent issue to be reviewed." He further adds, "The people from the legal fraternity can see the danger of pushing the nation into chaos and degeneration. This decades has to be tackled at the intellectual level first. Planning and reforms may follow. Another vital point must be kept in mind, that the spirit of the basic structure of the Constitution has to be protected at all cost. The Institute of Objective Study strives to create a society based on equal rights, goodwill, fraternity, and cohesion. Such cohesion and harmony are possible only through combined effort to create a just order through legal instrument." Friends, this is the objective of how the chairman conceived this idea to have the seminar and research work on this topic. In fact, the book has been compartmentalized in 6 different sections. Section 1 of the book that is deals with the approaches to the equality, justice, and fraternity. So these are the articles based upon what are the various approaches through which we can, through the lens of which we can see the equality, justice, and fraternity. The second section of the combination of the compilation of the few articles, which is reflects the in the contemporary India, the application of equality and fraternity. The third section deals with the state of citizens and equality, dealing with the different articles on lynching also. The fourth section that deals with the constitutional morality. The editor just now he was speaking about the constitutional morality. Now, what is under the lens of equality and justice? You can see the constitutional morality. The fifth one is the articles related to the secularism, religious freedom, and equality. These are the guarantees which has already been provided under part 3rd, that is the fundamental right of the Indian Constitution. And the last section is devoted to the compilation of the articles on equality and morality, minority and justice. So these are the variety of the article on important and significant area of this equality, fraternity and fraternity that has been compiled. And I hope that the readers who will read this book will be enriched of the knowledge that how much freedom they acquire, they have been given under the Constitution, and how much they are availing. And for rest of the remaining, they will strive for. With this small note, I am very thankful once again that I have been invited here for the release of this book and assigned the responsibility of releasing the book. With this, I am very thankful to you for your patience hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, very much for this wonderful presentation, for this wonderful address. Sir, you gave us the complete analysis of the book, its title, and also the purpose of the book, and you correlated it with the Indian Constitution and preamble of the Constitution. You presented the idea of secular state, social justice, economic justice, and human dignity. You correlated all this with the title of the book. It was really a brilliant presentation from your side. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Professor Zadem Khan Saab, Secretary General, Institute of Objective Studies and former head and dean, Department of Political Science, Jamia Millia Islamia, for his presidential address. Professor Zadem Khan Saab.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmaduhu nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem. My dear friends, Professor Iqbal Hussain, Dr. Hasina Harshia, very learned professor from Amdard. I don't know your name, but it is so nice of you that you have graced the occasion. मैं सोच रहा हूँ उर्दू में बोलूं। जब मैंने ये, एक तो पहली बात ये है कि ये जो किताब आपके सामने है, ये A to Z इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टडीज का इनिशिएटिव है। थॉट प्रोसेस यहीं का है। इसमें मैं डॉक्टर नोमानी को मुबारकबाद पेश करता हूं कि उन्होंने बहुत जांफिशानी से इस काम को मुकम्मल किया और आज ये किताब की शक्ल में आपके सामने मौजूद है। इसे आप पढ़ेंगे तो आपको लुत्फ आएगा और आप ये महसूस करेंगे कि चीज़ें कहाँ तक हमारी समझ में आ रही हैं या नहीं आ रही हैं, क्योंकि आज के दौर में चीज़ों को करेक्ट पर्सपेक्टिव में समझना बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है। टेक्नोलॉजी है, प्रोपेगेंडा है, डिफरेंट आइडियोलॉजीज हैं, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ। अपनी बात में आप जानते हैं बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं बोलता हूँ, मुख्तसर 2-3-4 मिनट आपसे बात करूँगा सिर्फ। जिस वक्त कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन तैयार हुआ उसके बाद सबसे ज्यादा फिक्रमंद डॉक्टर B.R. अम्बेडकर थे। वजह क्या थी? उनके जहन में ये था कि हमने जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाया है वो अव्वल दर्जे का है। इकोनॉमी हिंदुस्तान की दोयम दर्जे की है और सोसाइटी सोयम दर्जे की है, लिहाजा बीच में कहीं रब्त नहीं है इन तीनों में। इन तीनों में रब्त कायम होगा जो हिंदुस्तान की सोसाइटी इसको प्रैक्टिस करेगी उसके बाद। बहुत हद तक, बहुत जमाने तक चीजें ठीक रहीं, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान की वसअत, इसका साइज, इसकी डाइवर्सिटी, इसका अपनी तारीख से चिमटे रहना, ट्रेडिशनलिज्म, ऑर्थोडॉक्स थिंकिंग, इन सबको मिला लीजिए तो चीजें मुश्किल हो जाती हैं। चीजें मुश्किल होती गई और जो लोग दूसरी आइडियोलॉजी को बिलीव करते थे जिसमें हिंदुत्व सबसे ऊपर है, उसमें आपने देखा होगा कि ये सारी चीजें जो कही गई हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में, ये लोग इसकी नफी करते हैं। शमसुल इस्लाम, डॉक्टर शमसुल इस्लाम ने बहुत काम किया है इस पर, आरएसएस पर। उसने अपनी पीएचडी मेरे साथ की थी, आई वाज हिज सुपरवाइजर। तो मैं जानता हूँ कितनी जाफिशानी से उसने मटेरियल कलेक्ट किया। उसके अलावा हम लोग इसी थीम पर हैदराबाद में कॉन्फ्रेंस कर रहे थे। वहाँ टी राजशेखर आए हुए थे। उन्होंने कहा कि हिंदुइज्म ग्रेडेड सोसाइटी में बिलीव करता है, वर्णाश्रम में बिलीव करता है। वर्णाश्रम क्लियर कट नेगेशन है इक्वालिटी का। इक्वालिटी हो ही नहीं सकती वर्णाश्रम में। तो इस टेम्परमेंट और इस मिजाज और इस सोसाइटी के बैकग्राउंड के साथ आप कहें जी फ्रेटर्निटी, इक्वालिटी, और जने क्या लिबर्टी, अरे भाई क्या बातें कर रहे हैं आप। ये बातें तो बहुत मुश्किल हैं हिंदुस्तान के समाज में। तो इसके लिए मेहनत करना थी। पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम को सबसे ज्यादा मेहनत करनी थी। क्यों? क्योंकि हमने जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाया उसमें हमने सबसे बड़ी जिम्मेदारी स्टेट को दे दी और ये तक कहा उसको कि तुम सोसाइटी की साख्त, उसका मिजाज भी तुम ही तय कर देना भाई। तो जब वो तय करेगा तो इसका मतलब उसकी अहमियत बढ़ती चली जाती है। एक तरफ तो ये नक्शा है, दूसरी तरफ हिंदुत्व वाला नक्शा है जिसमें आपने देखा कि आहिस्ता आहिस्ता मेजॉरिटेरियनिज्म की तरफ हिंदुस्तान जा रहा है। मेजॉरिटी ले लीजिए और फिर डिक्टेटर हो जाइए। हिटलर भी ऐसे ही डिक्टेटर हुआ था, वो भी डेमोक्रेसी के थ्रू ही आया था, वोट से ही आया था। तो इलेक्शन होना इस बात की जमानत नहीं होती है कि आप डेमोक्रेटिक हैं, आप लिबरल हैं, आप फ्रेटर्निटी को मानते हैं, इक्वालिटी को मानते हैं। नो, ये आपकी प्रैक्टिस बताएगी। 5 साल में एक बार इलेक्शन होना इस बात की अलामत नहीं है कि आप डेमोक्रेसी हैं। डेमोक्रेसी इज ए कमिटमेंट दैट कम्स आउट ऑफ योर स्पिरिट। रूहानी किस्सा है ये, और ये रूहानी किस्सा तब तक सही नहीं होता जब तक कि आपकी कमिटमेंट ना हो। अब मैं शेखी खोरी की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन अगर आप इस्लामिक फिलॉसफी को पढ़ें तो आप देखेंगे कि ये कमिटमेंट साफ साफ दिखाई देता है। इस अंदाज में दिखाई देता है कि थ्योरी भी है और इंतहा आला दर्जे की प्रैक्टिस भी है। उसमें ट्रेजेडीज हो गई। ट्रेजेडी कॉलोनियल पावर्स ने की और हमारे जहन को भटका दिया कि कहीं इस तरफ न चल पड़े सारी दुनिया। तो पहला काम ये किया कि भाई इल्म 2 तरह का होता है, एक दीनी इल्म, एक दुनियावी इल्म, एक असरी علوم ایک مذہبی علوم, اور اصلی علوم تو مذہبی ہیں, اصلی تو اصلی ہی ہے, اس کا دیکھا جائے گا. یہ سب سے بڑا بلو تھا جو ہندوستان یعنی جو مسلمانوں کے ذہن کو لگا. ساری لیڈرشپ, بھائی فزکس, کیمسٹری, میتھمیٹکس, انجینئرنگ, ایوری تھنگ از پارٹ آف لائف. آپ کہتے ہیں ہم اس دنیا اور عاقبت اور جنے کیا کیا اس سب کا دھیان رکھتے ہیں. کیسے رکھ سکتے ہو؟ تمہیں کچھ تو پتہ نہیں ہے, نہ فزکس کا پتہ, نہ کیمسٹری کا پتہ, نہ کسی چیز کا. اگر دنیا کو نہیں جانتے ہو تو دین کو کیسے جانو گے بھائی؟ تو اس لیے ایک تو یہ سب سے بڑا بلو ہندوستان کے مسلمانوں کے اور یا اسلام کے سلسلے میں کریٹ کیا گیا. کولونیل پاورز نے کریٹ کیا اور یہ مسلمانوں نے اس کو آسان نسخہ سمجھ کے ایکسیپٹ کر لیا کہ واہ 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 آپ نے کیا بات کہی ہے. مشاعرہ ہونے لگا کہ کیا شعر کہا ہے. اسی میں ڈوبتے چلے گئے, اسی میں ڈوبتے چلے گئے. آپ آج تک اسی میں ڈوبے ہوئے. کوئی پولیٹیکل سائنٹسٹ, ہم نے ڈاکٹر صاحب سوچتے رہتے ہیں بیچارے, ہم ان کے ساتھ لگے رہتے ہیں. ایک بار ہم لوگوں نے سوچا کہ یہ جو مدرسے ہیں ان میں ہم لوگ کچھ اساتذہ کو بھیجیں جو بتائیں, کوئی پولیٹیکل سائنس بتائے, کوئی اکنامکس بتائے, اس کے ٹرینڈز بتا دیں. بھائی آج کل یہ ہو رہا ہے. آپ کو تعجب ہوگا ایک بھی بڑے مدرسے نے ایگری نہیں کیا کہ آ کے ہمارے یہاں لیکچر بھیج دیجیے. میں نے آفر کیا تھا, میں نے کہا میں صاحب 2-4 جگہ تو میں چلا جاؤں گا, حالانکہ میری صحت ایسی نہیں رہتی, مگر پھر میں نے کہا میں چلا جاؤں گا صاحب. کوئی ایگری نہیں کرتا اس بات پہ, بات کرنے کو بھی تیار نہیں ہے. سب نے جاگیریں بنا لی اور اس میں مٹھادھیش ہو کے بیٹھ گئے. اسلام نے اس مٹھادھیش کو بہت ڈیناؤنس کیا ہے اور ہم نے وہی مٹھادھیش کریٹ کر کے ہم لوگ بیٹھ گئے. تو اب اس کی سب کی سزا تو ملے گی. تو امبیڈکر نے جو بات کہی تھی کہ سوسائٹی ایک طرح کی, پالیٹکس دوسرے طرح کی, اکنامکس تیسرے طرح کی, ان سب کو ساتھ ملا کے چلاؤ گے تو فرکشن تو ہوگا ہی. اور اگر فرکشن ہوگا تو سب سے پہلے کون سا پرزہ ٹوٹے گا؟ جو سب سے کمزور ہے. تو سب سے کمزور پرزہ ٹوٹ رہا ہے, مسلسل ٹوٹ رہا ہے, اور اس طرف دھیان نہیں جاتا, نہ جا رہا ہے. اللہ کرے یہ دھیان جائے. ہم لوگوں کا آئی او ایس میں یہ ایک بڑی ایفرٹ ہے کہ ہم اپنے آپ کو ان مسائل سے روشناس کرائیں جن سے ہم جھوج رہے ہیں. یہ ساری ایفرٹس آپ کے سامنے ہیں, آپ جانتے ہیں, آپ سب انسائڈر ہیں انسٹیٹیوٹ کے سلسلے میں. اس کی کیا تھاٹ پروسیس ہے, کتنا ہم لوگ کام کرتے ہیں, کیا کرتے ہیں, سب آپ کے سامنے ہے. آپ لوگ بس دعا کریں, اصل اسلام کی روح کو تازہ کریں, اجاگر کریں, اس پہ عمل کریں. اور سب سے بہتر طریقہ تبلیغ کا جو ہم نے سیکھا ہے وہ یہ ہے کہ عمل کر کے بتاؤ گے تو کچھ سیکھے گا, عمل ہی نہیں کرو گے, تقریر کرتے رہو گے تو کیسے ہوگا. تو اب مجھے یاد ہے ایک زمانے میں جب ہم میں کہا 20-25-30 سال پہلے لوگ عام طور پر مسلم ورکرز کو بلاتے تھے. الیکٹریشین ہوا, پلمبر ہوا, یہ ہوا, پوچھتے تھے کوئی میاں ہے کیا؟ ہاں جی ہاں بھیج دو. کیوں بھیج دو بھائی؟ کہنا ایماندار ہوتا ہے, کم پیسے لیتا ہے, کام اپنا ایمانداری سے کر کے چلا جاتا ہے. اب وہ سلسلہ نہیں ہے. اب پوچھتا ہے کہ میاں تو نہیں ہے. یہ کیوں ہو گیا؟ یہ اس لیے ہو گیا کہ ہم نے اپنا ٹوٹل پیٹرن بدل دیا ہے. تو بھائی کچھ محنت تو کرنا پڑے گی, صرف نہاری کھانے سے نہیں کام چلے گا. You will have to come forward and work very hard on themes, on topics, on issues. اور سب سے بڑا جو چیلنج ہے وہ یہ ہے, کیونکہ دیکھیے انہوں نے بہت سمپل بات بتا رہا ہوں آپ کو کہ ہندوستان کا جو کانسٹیٹیوشن ہے اس کی فلسفی یا اس کے اسٹرکچر کو آپ ڈائریکٹ ہٹ نہیں کر سکتے. تو کیا ہے کہ پہلے اس کے انوائرنمنٹ کو خراب کر دو. جس انوائرنمنٹ میں یہ سسٹم چل رہا ہے اس کو ویشیٹ کر دو. جب وہ انوائرنمنٹ ویشیٹ ہو جائے گا تو وہ ڈیمانڈ کرے گا یہ بدل دو وہ بدل دو, تو آپ اسٹرکچر کو بدلنا شروع کر دیں گے. جب اسٹرکچر بدل جائے گا تو فلسفی خود زمین بوس ہو جائے گی. تو یہ ایک پورا سسٹم ہے جس پہ بہت پیسہ خرچ کر کے اور بڑے ذہن لگا کے مسلسل کام ہو رہا ہے. اس کام کو سمجھنے کی اشد ضرورت ہے. اب آپ سمجھیں کہ یہ اکیلا ٹھیکہ iOS کا ہے کہ ہر چیز کو سمجھے بھی, اسے ایڈوانس بھی کرے, اس کے بارے میں بولے بھی, خطرے بھی مول لے, کیونکہ آج کل کسی سلسلے میں کوئی بات کہنا خطرے سے بھی تو خالی نہیں ہے. تو ان سارے کمپلشنز کے ساتھ ہم لوگ کام کر رہے ہیں, لیکن الحمدللہ اس میں کسی طرح کی پریشانی کی ضرورت یوں نہیں ہے کہ ہندوستان بہت بڑا ملک ہے. اللہ مسبب الاسباب ہے, مایوسی گناہ ہے, کفر ہے, لہذا چلتے رہنا اشد ضروری ہے. ہم لوگ آپ کے ساتھ ہیں, آپ ہمارے ساتھ جڑ جائیے, انشاءاللہ منزل آسان ہو جائے گی. بہت بہت شکریہ.
Thank you very much, Professor Zadem Khan Sahab, for your presidential address. You explained everything, like the idea of fraternity, in a very simplified manner. Thank you very much. हमारे आज के ये बुक रिलीज फंक्शन अब इख्तिताम पजीर हो रहा है. इसके लिए मैं इसके जो एडिटर है, बुक के एडिटर प्रोफेसर मोहम्मद महफूज नोमानी साहब को बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद देती हूँ, इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टडीज की तरफ से, और इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टडीज को भी मुबारकबाद पेश करते हैं कि इतनी अच्छी किताब जिस पर इतने अच्छे तबसरे हुए, इसको आज रिलीज किया गया. आई कंग्रेचुलेट ऑल. अब मुझे आपके सामने एक बहुत ही अफसोसनाक खबर जो आज सुबह हमें मिली है, वो है प्रोफेसर नजातुल्लाह सिद्दीकी साहब का इंतकाल फरमाना. आज सुबह 5 बजे इंडियन टाइम के हिसाब से उन्होंने इस दायरे फानी को रुखसत किया. इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन. प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर नजातुल्लाह सिद्दीकी साहब माहिर इस्लामी माशियात और बड़े इस्लामी मुफक्किर और इस्लामिक स्टडीज के एक कद आवर शख्सियत थे. मरहूम को इस्लामी माशियात पर खिदमात के एतराफ में आलम इस्लाम का सबसे बड़ा अवार्ड शाह फैसल अवार्ड दिया गया था. मरहूम ने आलम इस्लामी की कई यूनिवर्सिटीज में अपनी खिदमात अंजाम दी. उन्होंने अपनी लाइफ का बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी में दर्स तदरीस में सर्फ किया. मरहूम का इंतकाल आज सुबह अमेरिका में हुआ है. प्रोफेसर नजातुल्लाह सिद्दीकी साहब हमारे चेयरमैन साहब के टीचर रहे हैं और उनका बहुत ज़्यादा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टडीज़ के साथ उनका बहुत ज़्यादा वास्ता था. वो हमारी गवर्निंग काउंसिल के भी मेंबर थे और इंस्टीट्यूट के कई किताबों के मुसन्निफ रह चुके हैं. इंस्टीट्यूट इस मौके पर एक कंडोलेंस मीटिंग और उनको खराज अकीदत पेश करता है. मैं इस मौके पर अपने चेयरमैन साहब प्रोफेसर मोहम्मद मंजूर आलम साहब की तरफ से उनका जो पैगाम है उसको पढ़ रही हूँ. With immense grief and sorrow, Dr. Mohammad Manzoor Alam, Chairman, Institute of Objective Studies, New Delhi, offers his deep condolences on the sad demise of Professor Muhammad Najatullah Siddiqui, who passed away today morning in Palo Alto, USA. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. Professor Najatullah Siddiqui was my teacher, guide, and philosopher. who always guided and supported me. I have lost a great teacher and a renowned scholar of Islamic banking and finance. Professor Siddiqui was the recipient of prestigious King Faisal Award. He was one of the founders of the Institute of Objective Studies and had been member of its governing council. He was also a recipient of the third IAS Shah Waliullah Award conferred on him in the year 2003 for his contribution in Islamic economics. He authored books titled Jihad, Ijtihad or Mujahid-e-Nafs and Tashaddud Islam or Tahrik-e-Islami for the Institute, contributed several articles for different IOS publications, and participated in a number of conferences and seminars on banking and finance organized by Institute of Objective Studies. Born in 1931 and educated at Aligarh Muslim University, he served as Associate Professor of Economics and Professor of Islamic Studies at the Aligarh Muslim University and as Professor of Economics at the King Abdul Aziz University, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. In its Center for Research in Islamic Economics, he later became a fellow at the Center for Near Eastern Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles, and after that, a visiting scholar at the Islamic Research and Training Institute, Islamic Development Bank, Jeddah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He was a prolific writer in Urdu and English and has 63 books in 5 languages and 1,301 library holdings to his credit. Several of his works have been translated into Arabic, Persian, Turkish, Indonesian language, and Malaysian language and Thai. May Allah accept all his good deeds, bless him with the choicest place in the heaven, and grant sabr to all in the grieved family and us to bear this irreparable loss. Amen. This was the message from the chairman, Institute of Objective Studies, New Delhi. Professor Siddiqui was his teacher and guide. Thank you very much. Now we want to, we will make some dua for him. कि अल्लाह ताला उनको गरी की रहमत करे, उनके दर्जात बुलंद करे. उन्होंने जितने भी काम किए हैं, जिस भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए किया है, अल्लाह ताला उनको सदका जारिया बनाए और उनको मगफिरत करे. और हमें जो उन्होंने काम अधूरे छोड़े हैं, हमें उनके तालिब इल्मों को वो काम पूरा करने की तौफीक दे. Amen. Amen. Now it is the time to present the vote of thanks. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Now this program came to an end. I pay my sincere thanks to Almighty Allah who made this event possible. It is my honor to thank Professor Zadem Nomani Saab, who is the editor of the book, for introducing and describing the contents of the book. I thank from the core of my heart to the chief guest of today's function, Professor Iqbal Hussain, for accepting our request and releasing the book. I pay my sincere thanks to Professor Zadem Khan Saab, who presided over the function. I am indebted to all participants, those who joined us physically and those who joined us in the online mode, for being with us. I am very thankful to all. I am grateful to Chairman Institute of Objective Studies, Dr. Muhammad Manzoor Alam, for being a source of inspiration for all of us and a great force behind all these activities. I am thankful to Madam Salima K. Bashir from Jamia Hamdard for attending our function and for being with us. I am thankful to IO staff, administrative as well as technical, and also to the publication division of Institute of Objective Studies, especially Mr. Ibrahim Alam. I am thankful to all of you for your time, for your patient listening, and for attending our condolence meeting also. Thank you very much.